Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my update to the Righteous Fire Mana Man. This one is mainly about the defensive improvements we've made, and for showcasing that, I have an Uber Shaper here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the sound effects so it doesn't get annoying while we're recording this, and we're going to talk about the changes we made to the character. Primarily, the big change we made was a shift to what you've probably seen a few times by now, which is the Dawnbreaker Sublime Vision Purity of Fire plus Tempered by War combination. It allows you to take all of your other elemental damage, cold and lightning, 100% as fire. So we can have minus 11 cold res, minus 22 lightning res. You'll notice we're sitting in a cold degen, and we're not really taking that much damage from it. This has a few big benefits. Number one is it allows you to get around pen. You'll notice I was getting hit by Shaper Balls a lot. Those things have 25 pen. One of the most dangerous things about Shaper Balls is they basically just chew through your resistances. And the way you deal with that is you shift the damage to another element. And there's a lot of mechanics in this game that have pen, certain boss abilities. Specifically, one of the primary ones I'm thinking of that's very dangerous is Uber Atziri. One of the most dangerous things you can encounter is an Uber Atziri Tormented, Feared, and Avoided Valdo map. And that attack comes with some fire penetration. Importantly, we are also combining all this fizz taken as fire with the new haunted modifier. Fire resistance cannot be penetrated. That might not seem like a big deal, but when you consider something like an Atziri Flame Blast, which I think comes with around 10 fire pen, it might be 20, that is the difference in you taking double the damage or not. If you have a 90 res character and you get 10 pen, you're taking double the damage. So this is cutting that damage in half by this mod alone for those mechanics that have fire pen. Not only are we layering in the fire cannot be penetrated, there's other strong defensive layers you can add in that cannot be slept on. Number one, or not number one, but one of the things I'm doing that you can layer with all this fizz taken as fire and all this elemental taken as fire is the Arctic Armor. You'll notice I have an Arctic Armor buff effect, and the reason I have that is because the Arctic Armor gives a buff which says take 21% less physical and fire damage while stationary. And since most of the damage we're taking is fire, that buff alone, that 25% reservation is almost close to essentially 25% DR for those elements because we have 20% buff effect on the 21% less. You do the math, it's like 26% less fire damage taken. We are also combining that with a lesser known buff, which is Infused Channeling. If you've ever played this gem, you're familiar with it, but I think it's one of those things that maybe isn't common knowledge. And Infused Channeling, the way it works is it gives you 10% more damage of the tag matching your skill that you're using, and excuse my throat. And it gives you 8% less damage taken from hits of the matching type. And this might go to 9% if I get a level 21 Infused Channeling. I'll have to look that up. But point is, this is giving us 8% less damage taken of fire when we have this infusion buff, which is, of course, working in great combination with the Dawnbreaker, Purity Fire, Sublime Vision, and Tempered by War nodes. For example, this right here, 50% damage taken as fire for lightning and cold, and this 30% cold and lightning taken as fire, and then the shield finishes up with another 20%. So the idea is we're layering in Infused Channeling, less damage taken, Arctic Armor, less damage taken, and we are a character stacking a large amount of intelligence, which this right here, with our currently 3,300 intelligence, is another 18% less damage taken. And this is global. This applies to chaos, fizz, whatever, but it also applies to fire. So the idea is we convert all this damage taken into one element, and then we layer on top of it a bunch of less damage modifiers that make us tankier and tankier and tankier. So that's the idea. That is the forethought of the defensive layers we've added in or changed. Now, granted, this comes with some opportunity cost. Obviously, we lose the ability to have a really big shield or another big wand for more single target, but we pick up a lot of defenses to do it. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to gear myself and prepare myself to do Voided Valdo maps. Not only do we have this defensive layer, there are, of course, still fizz and chaos to deal with. What are we doing for those elements? Number one, I want to put this into perspective. In this game, certain damage types, they just hit harder than others. For example, the Shaper Slam that I just get hit by, Uber Shaper Slam, that's one of the biggest fizz hits in the game outside of, like, for example, certain crazy map mods on a very specific attack on a tormented, whatever. But in the base game of normal things you encounter, that's one of the biggest fizz hits, and it's about 15 to 20,000 fizz. That's how hard Shaper Slam hits. In context, if you're trying to look for the biggest elemental hit in the game, you'd be looking at something like the Uber Eater Ultimate Nuke, which hits for 500 to 700,000 lightning damage, somewhere in that range. based on my testing with my previous characters is what I'd put it at. Now that is a very, very different number. If you look at that number versus the Shaper number, it's 25 times plus in terms of contrast. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how this game is scaled, how they've balanced things. Resistances at base, you have 75 res. It's balanced around the fact you can get more defensive layers for resistance, but it also is hopefully showcasing the fact that a lot of the times elemental attacks are just more dangerous, and you want to layer more defenses to deal with elemental attacks in this game. Now, that's not saying I didn't care about Fizz. I do have some defensive layers for Fizz as well. For example, Arctic Armor also gives 25% less damage taken for Fizz. We do have the 18% less damage taken globally from Intelligence. I have 19% Fizz taken as on the shield. I have 5% Fizz taken as here. Technically, I could corrupt another 8% Fizz taken as on my shield. I could benchcraft the Fizz taken as on my helmet, but I do not have that benchcraft yet, so I haven't done that yet. Something I haven't done a lot of Betrayal this league. Also, on top of all of that, we have roughly 20,000 armor, and we have 16 PDR from endurance charges. This is mainly armor due to Radiant Faith. We're getting like 5,000 to 7,000 base armor just from our reserved mana, and that plus a % armor affix on one flask is enough to get us a pretty considerable amount of armor. That combined with the PDR, the Fizz taken as, and the other less damage multipliers, it actually is a pretty considerable Fizz defense for the most part. Late game of this character, excuse my throat, late game of this character, we are also planning to grab the mastery here that says recover 5% whenever you take one Fizz hit. This just stacks. So if you have an enemy like Chayula, which does a lot of Fizz damage, and he starts chaining all on top of you, you can then get quite a bit of, I didn't realize I had all these fragments for sale. You can get quite a bit of recovery just from them hitting you so many times. Now that it leads into my other point of, one of the things we deal with in this game is this the final phase of Shaper? I don't remember doing him twice, but I'll go ahead and finish him off. Nah, oh well. All right, I'm gonna make this trade. That leads me into my other point, which is Chaos. Part of the reason the way we're dealing with Chaos is via, which one is this guy? This guy's Gallus. So we will give him the fragments here. Fight that guy. I guess full disclosure, this is my second time recording this video, and the first time I recorded it, I remembered to put on D&D. The second time, I guess I forgot. So I apologize for that. I'm going to go on D&D after I trade these guys. So hopefully, won't have that issue going forward. I apologize. Anyways, aside from that, for dealing with Chaos, we have I forget a fragment or something. I forgot a fragment, and I was scamming him. Oh no. Beside from that, as for dealing with Chaos, you'll notice before we were wearing an Ivory Tower, and Ivory Tower has the mod that specifically makes it so your Chaos damage has to be taken from your mana before your life. And I was reserving not all my mana. I had some mana regen. That was okay defense for Chaos. It was basically baseline of most like decent HP character with some Chaos res. That's not really baseline of what I want to get in terms of tankiness. I want the full deal of I want to be able to have Chaos damage have to go through 37,000 ES. And the way we do it is the Chaos damage does not bypass Energy Shield while not on low life. That modifier right there restricts Chaos damage from bypassing as long as I have above 51% of my life. Now, later in the character, I might find the gem space. I might rework some stuff to reserve 25 or do like a 25% reservation on my life pool and just reserve just above 51%. But as of right now, I specifically am reserving more mana just to make my ES number higher. And I didn't have enough jewel sockets or gem sockets to support just putting an aura on Arrogance, if that makes any sense. Anyways, the point is, as long as I'm above low life, I no longer have Chaos damage bypassing me. Unfortunately, this means we have to drop some single target in Ivory Tower with Pain Attunement. And ultimately, if you're doing this character on a budget, I would recommend Pain Attunement. I would recommend Ivory Tower because, quite frankly, with that setup before where I had about 5k mana unreserved, that was going to be plenty in terms of being able to deal damage to kill Ubers and not really die. Anyways, because Chaos damage isn't really that dangerous. With that being said, if I'm going to take this character into voided maps, I cannot afford to have any weak links in my defense, and I had to swap out to this for more defenses, and that way Chaos damage has to go through my 37,000 ES as well. Okay, hopefully I've covered a lot of the basics of the character on the defensive layers. Hopefully I've given you a good disclosure on that. There is also the idea of Once you have good mitigation, you need good sustain. And to do that, you'll notice I have a lot of tattoos here. And the tattoo I have basically all over my tree is regen. Our character has roughly about 5,000 regen, which is, I think, about net 3 or 4,000. I'd have to POB it to check how much degen I'm taking from Righteous Fire. I don't actually know. It's based on my mana pool. Haven't done the math, but you get the idea. The point is, we tattoo a bunch of regen, we put regen in our flask, and all that's all for the purpose of having sustain. I still would like to have more net sustain than that, so as I push the character, we're going to try to push that number up as well. But the idea is, if you layer all these defensive layers, but you don't have sustain, you're just going to get chipped down and die eventually, and the idea is you want to layer in some sustain. On top of the regen, we also have the Leech mod combined with Ghost Reaver. I believe this works pseudo as an ES recoup kind of style thing where you get hit with some damage, and then a portion of that is leech back to you as ES. I think this works decently. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm trying it out. That's the idea there. Okay. Anyways, hopefully I've covered a lot of the layers of the defense of this character. Hopefully I've given you a good idea about the progression we've made. There's still a lot I have to do that cost a lot of currency. Right now I am on a lot of 5 passive voices, and I have jewels that are not finished correctly in terms of I have a lot of jewels that don't have 5 int as an implicit, which that adds up pretty quick when you consider this character's exponential scaling, where the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. And so we got to start working towards that. Now, in order for me to do that, I have to make a lot of money. And the road I see to making a lot of money, it involves doing the Voided Valdo maps. I think my character's ready for some of those hard maps. Full disclosure, if I die, I will make a final video, which will basically be like, I died, and this is how far I got. Otherwise, we're going to keep pushing the character. I'm going to keep making videos. But if I die, the character stops there. We're going to push it as far as we can. We'll see if we die to like a DD or something stupid. We'll see if we just push it all the way. And I'll keep making videos. Who knows what the future holds? If you're checking me out on stream today, we're going to be doing a lot of Voided maps, hopefully. And we'll see where we can take it. Anyways, this is the Mana Man RF build. This is the progress. We did a big defensive update. Now it's all about, let's start pushing those numbers up and see where we can take this thing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching. This is a big passion project of mine, so I appreciate those who like seeing the journey. And until next time, take care, Exiles, and peace out.